Welcome to the Communication Diva Podcast, episode 149. Today on the podcast, Jen interviews author Dianne Astle about seeking the treasure of your own true self. Arr, everyone loves treasure.
Hello, my friends. Jen Swanson here with the 149th episode of the Communication Diva podcast. And I'm going to bring you my conversation with author and United Church of Canada minister Dianne Astle. We're going to talk a lot about self-esteem and learning disabilities and the many careers that she had and how she came to be writing these amazing books that she's written. She's got another one coming out soon, and we'll have this. I want to share this great conversation with you. But before I do that, I want to let you know that we have chosen. If you haven't noticed already on Facebook or the Twitter account that I've got that's changed, or Instagram, we've decided on our new name, and I'm hoping to have everything switched over by November 15th. We will hereafter be called the Careers by Jen podcast. Careers by Jen, and careersbyjen.com will be up and running by then. And you can find me on Twitter at careersbyjen. That's JENN. You can find Instagram. Our Communication Diva page has changed over to Careers by Jen page on Facebook. If you're already on there, you will have noticed that. But if you're not, then you can come on over and check that out. So I'm working on the changes slowly. It's going to take a little while, but I'm really looking forward to the new title, more focused and hopefully more findable out there for search engine purposes, etc. So that's coming up really soon. I'm not sure that there's anything else more exciting than that to tell you about. I'm getting new artwork done. Everything will look different, but the content is going to be the same. You're still going to be able to find information and topics and courses and all the things to help you get the job, love your work, and to advance your career. So that's what's going on. And here I'm going to bring you my conversation now with the wonderful and inspiring Dianne Astle. So welcome, Dianne, to the show. I'm so glad to have you here today, and I'm glad that we can finally make this work.
Thank you for inviting me, Jen. This is such a privilege.
It's been a long time in coming. We were talking about it quite some time ago, I think last spring.
Yes, it's taken quite a while for me too.
So I just wanted to, before we get to what you're doing today, I'd like to go back and ask you to tell a little bit about your journey, about how you came to be the published author that you are today.
Well, to know me when I was in school, you would have never dreamed that this is where I'd end up, because I was bottom of the class. I had learning disabilities and failed out of everything you could fail out of. I was in academics, failed out of that in grade 10, took business, failed out of that with a D in typing, would you believe? And then took hairdressing to graduate from grade 12, which I was terrible at. And so that was my beginning. When I left high school, I didn't feel I could write a letter that I could be proud of and send to my mother, which is pretty sad.
Mm. Mm-hmm. But you managed to have all number of different careers or jobs, and can you tell me about those?
I was very fortunate. I got a job in Calgary working as a topographical land technician. And I got the job because I could color and print, which is kind of funny. And that job opened up a job with the Alberta government as a draftsperson. And so I was draftsperson there for a number of years. But I've also worked as a news correspondent for a radio station and a teacher's aide. And I've done all of those jobs, including being a church minister, without having formal training.
That's amazing. And so the work that you did in each job, did it build on the one before it?
Well, certainly it did, from land technician to draftsperson. And I did several jobs as a draftsperson that were built on that experience, that early experience. Mm-hmm.
And so you were able to get these without experience, or without that particular experience, but using the experience you'd had previously.
Truly, yeah.
Right, right. But then how did you get from that to a teacher's aide?
Well, my son had learning disabilities, so I was working on my undergraduate degree, and I was taking courses in educating children with special needs, educating children with learning disabilities. And so those two courses would have gotten me the job as a teacher's aide. But speaking about my son, I want to share a story from when he was in grade 1. His teacher in Elkford, BC, asked the kids to write a story. Now, his story would be the worst story of any of them, technically, because he wasn't able to shape the alphabet really well. I think there was only a couple of letters that you could recognize. But his teacher asked him to read her his story, which he did, and she gave him an award for being a good storyteller. Then she took his story and read it to her class, and then took him and his story to another grade 1 class and read it. And through the years, when it was hard for my son to write, he would still try to write through elementary school because he believed he was a storyteller, because his teacher had told him he was. And now he's got a university degree in creative writing. So I just want to say to teachers, please do what you can to encourage those children that struggle. And you never know the impact that you're making. I know my son likely wouldn't be in university or have gone to university if it wasn't for that grade 1 teacher.
Isn't that amazing that somebody that far back can have such a massive impact, probably on his entire life?
Right, yeah.
Because of that one act of taking the story for the story, not because of how he put the markings on the page.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really very special.
It would be nice to be able to tell her that, hey?
Oh, I'd love to be able to tell her that. Yeah. But I've forgotten the teacher's name.
Of course, yeah. But, we have people like that who influence us in our lives sometimes that never, ever find out that they've had that big of an impact.
Oh, for sure.
And,
yes.
it's those are little moments of grace, or little beacons of light, or whatever language you want to use. But it's I'm sure many people have stories about that one teacher or that one person that helped them shape their lives as they grew up,
and help them believe in themselves. Believed in them when they couldn't believe in themselves. That's what I wanted to say. Because we don't always believe in yourselves. I certainly, when I was leaving high school, didn't believe that I could ever be anything or do anything with my life.
Really?
Certainly, yes, for sure. And anything I tried, I was really bad at, and I got fired, so that didn't help.
You got fired?
Yeah, I wasn't a very good waitress.
Oh, oh no.
But it having learning disabilities resulted in very low self-esteem, which I struggled with for years. In fact, when I was working as a topographical land technician, I was asked to leave by one company because my low self-esteem showed in my appearance. I was untidy. I was dirty. Yeah.
It impacts the whole self, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
When your self-esteem is low.
And it's so hard to have a good self-esteem when you've got learning disabilities. It just really drags you down.
Do you think that's changed over the years? Was it different for your son?
I think he has struggled as well with, feeling that he has the confidence, with the confidence, that he needs.
And yet he's accomplished, and he's
yes,
like you.
He's a wonderful man.
That's key, isn't it? So you were in university, you were taking courses to help your son. Mm-hmm. And then what happened after that?
Well, I was working half-time at the time as a church minister.
And how did that happen?
I don't know where I got it, but I got this throwing my hat in the ring when there was no reason why I should be accepted to do something. So I got accepted to be a church minister in a rural church with no background and training. So then I'm working towards that goal. And I ended up getting a job outside of Toronto in Unionville as a staff associate in a large church.
Which is a ministry position as well.
Yes,
but so before you got to that, though, how did you get in? Like, you weren't in the church all the way along.
Oh, no, I was not. In fact, when I tried to go to church, I felt like a rotten apple in the middle of a barrel of good ones. I felt like I didn't belong. And it was someone who shared their failures as a Christian who helped me believe that God could accept me, because I felt like a terrible failure. I felt like there was nothing of value in my life. And when I felt beloved of God, it was the key to starting to feel that I could love myself. And learning how to love yourself is the key to going ahead and doing things with your life that you would have never believed possible. Can I share a story?
Yeah, absolutely.
I took a course at Regent College, and the course was the Christian imagination. And the point of the course was that we're all made in the image of God, the Creator. Therefore, we are all creators. Now, this is a master's level course, and at the time, I hadn't started my undergraduate degree.
But you don't do things conventionally anyway, so...
So anyway, the interesting thing is my attitude towards myself was when God was handing out beauty and brains, I was standing behind the door, and talent. I didn't believe I had it. But why would I? Oh, I know why I went to do that course. 3 different people said to me, you should do a course at Regent College. And I decided that maybe God was speaking to me, and I signed up. So anyway, I took this course, and you either had to write 2 10, 20-page papers, I can't remember now, or you had to do 1 paper and an original work of art. So I created my first puppet where I drew and then cut and glued, and because of the puppet, I managed to pass this master's level course because my writing was so bad at the time. Then I went on to do an undergraduate degree. I got into university as a mature student by taking 2 grade 12 courses and then getting in as a mature student. And like when I got in, I didn't know how to spell the word there. Was it THIE or EI? I had no idea half the time. So I'd sit there with a dictionary on my lap, and I hate to tell you how old I am, but this was before computers. So there was a lot of whiteout on those papers as I whited out spelling mistakes. And it's amazing I got into university. That's all I'll say.
But you did.
I did. Yeah.
And not only that, you completed a master's degree.
I did, with almost honors while I worked full-time and raised
had
a
a child.
family.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I did quite well. And I loved doing my theological degree. Like found that I loved to research and write papers. So I did 1 paper on fashion magazines, the worldview in them and their impact on women. Another one on the use and abuse of power by clergy. And I just had a lot of fun doing papers.
So that must have been a world opening up for you going to university.
It did. I loved it. I finished my first year of university, and I got depressed because the year was over. I was really, I just absolutely loved that. It was like I never even dared to dream I'd go to university. So it was more than I could have dreamed for, is what it was.
And you loved it, and you excelled at it. and then you were ordained as a minister.
I was.
In the United Church.
Yeah, I was.
And that was a whole different path, way back from the topical.
And again, a totally unexpected path, because I'd started out in the United Church, and my mother, there'd been a bad experience there, and so she was not very United Church friendly. So when I came back to the faith, I said to God, I can recognize that you're in all the churches, and I'll worship you anywhere, but I'll never worship you I'll even worship you in the Catholic Church, but I'll never worship you in the United Church.
Never say never.
But you know what? I ended up falling in love with the United Church. And I think the reason I fell in love with it, well, this is maybe not other people's reasons, but I think any other church my low self-esteem would have kept me sitting in the background. But the United Church had such a desperate need for people to be involved, teaching Sunday school and things, that I said, oh God, if you'll help me, I'll try, and step forward to teach kindergarten.
And this was when you were first in
step.
there. You're first in there, yeah.
It was
Before
a big
you
step.
trained.
Before I trained.
Yeah.
Before anything, yeah.
Yeah. And that was a big step.
So, yes.
And that was because someone told you about their failings.
But their failings. They told me about their failings as a Christian that helped me believe that God could accept me. Yeah. But I never expected that I would end up writing a book. When I was working as a staff associate in Unionville, I had a friend, Vivian Walker. And Vivian and I were walking together one day, and we were saying how it would be fun to write a book. But, she was going into library science. And for me, we said, oh, well, it can't be that hard to write a romance. And, but I never expected to. It was sort of like, yeah, I'd love to fly to the moon one day. I never really expected that I would actually write a book. Years later, Vivian and I connected again, and she has written a romance that is rooted in Harrison Lake in BC.
Oh.
And that's Vivian Walker. And I have written a fantasy, 3 fantasies. I'm just about finished the 3rd.
And so your walk with Vivian way back when, 15 or 16 years ago or something, when you were just talking about how you'd like to write a book and how hard could it be, has now come to be real all these years later.
It's so hard. I couldn't believe how hard it was to write. And, I wouldn't have written a book except that I was working in Saskatchewan as a church minister, and I'd worked too many 60-hour weeks, and I needed a break. And the church gives you time off to do study. So there was a school in Saskatchewan, for like a training center, a retreat center. And everything else felt like more work. It was all to theology or the Bible or something. And I just needed a break.
Something totally different.
So there was a course called Writing Redemptive Fiction. And I thought, well, I'll go to that. It'll just be a puffball course. It wasn't a puffball course. It was lots of hard work. But on the way home, I had the idea for Ben the Dragon Born. And so I started writing Ben the Dragon Born on top of my 60-hour weeks, which was crazy, but that's what I did. And then I got a half-time job when we moved to BC and had a little bit more time to write. But it took me 8 years to write that book. I finished it, and I had several wonderful rejection letters from publishers, and then decided that I would self-publish it. And I published it, ordered 60 copies, and I was working full-time as a church minister again. And one of the ladies in my church was so brave. She bought one of the copies and said, "Dianne, do you know how many mistakes are in your book?" Well, I learned that a person that's had learning disabilities in their past and thinks they may have overcome them hasn't overcome them enough to be a writer without a lot of help. So since then, I've learned that to hire editors. I not only hire one editor, I hire two. One to be a content editor and one to be a copy editor. Because I don't want anything out there that isn't as perfect as it can be.
Exactly.
But my book has 87 reviews on Amazon from people around the world. Now that's Amazon.com,
Right.
not Amazon.ca.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So before we talk more about your book, because I want to talk about that a little bit more, there seems to be a thread of I don't know, resourcefulness or determination or persistence, something through your life that has brought you through all these different careers and all these different steps to doing what you love doing now. And I know you do pottery and you love to do that. You're very creative.
Yes.
And you do pottery and you're writing, you're on your third book and you're doing all these things when at the beginning you thought you couldn't do anything.
Yes.
So what was it that kept you going?
Well, my mother was a particularly strong person. And my husband used to say, when he was mad at me, "You're just like your mother." Whoops. He probably wouldn't like me saying all of this. But he'd say, "You're just like your mother." And I would say, "I am not." And then he would, after a few years, he'd say that, and I'd say, "Well, thank you very much." But my mother, it was a very real character. There was one day when she was driving down the road and there was a police officer behind her. And so he stops her and he gives her a ticket. And she was quite convinced that she wasn't speeding. So she had him follow her around the block to check her speedometer. And it was fine. So he gives her a ticket. She goes to court. And the judge says, you either pay this fine or you go to jail. And so my mother says, "I'll go to jail." And she says, she says, "I'll go to jail." The last thing she says when the police come to take her away to jail is, "Don't let your father go down and pay that fine." She gets to jail, and they ask her if there's anything they can bring, and she says, "Yes, bring me a Bible, please." And she proceeds to get to know the ladies of the night. Oh. And one of the ladies of the night turned into a street evangelist on the streets of Vancouver because she was in jail with my mother.
Good heavens! How long was your mother in there for?
Just 3 days. And it was like they came one night, and then she spent the full day, and then they let her go the next morning. So it wasn't 3 full days. It was just touch of, evening of this day, morning of the third day.
And yet in those 3 days, she influenced someone else's life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Yes. When I was talking about power, when I was in Japan, one of the girls I worked with said to me...
Wait, you were working in Japan?
I did my internship in Japan.
Oh, there you go.
It was fabulous.
For your ministry.
I loved it, yes.
Okay.
Well, she said...
Can't keep up with you.
She said, "I wish I could be a powerful person like you." And I was really taken back by that. If she'd said, "I wish I could be a loving person like you," I would have understood that. So after the fact, I did this paper on power and realized that love needs power, or else it's not really effective. And that there's something of value to have. Like it's important to have personal power and recognize that you do. And so I don't know where that ability to put myself out there, I know that it has a huge cost for me, health-wise.
The risk-taking, you mean?
The risk-taking, putting myself out there. I've lived with a huge amount of stress, but I don't let it stop me. I go forwards anyway. And I mean, I've put myself out there to do jobs that, like people have said to me, "Whatever made you think you could do that?"
But you did it.
But I did it. And for some reason, people felt that I could and hired me. So don't be the one to put the brakes on your own life. Go out there and try and do it, and surround yourself with people that when you don't believe in yourself, we'll believe in you. And try to think about the things that you're good at, the things that you can take pride in, and honor that part of yourself. Just don't dwell in that place where I'm such a failure. I can't do anything. Don't dwell there.
Yeah, because it sounds like, from something as small as having good printing and being able to color.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Which really is a small thing in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
But that was a beginning.
It was a beginning, yes. Well, and, I don't know whatever made me apply for that job, but I've been extremely lucky, and most young people alive today would not be as lucky as I was. Really, life is really tougher nowadays, and my heart goes out for people that have dreams and find it hard to achieve those dreams. And I guess what I want to leave them with is, don't be the one to put limits on yourself. Find a way to believe in yourself and step out there. And if you don't have a skill at the moment, find out how to get it.
Right.
And I think too many people in our society, and young people and old people, are crippled by low self-esteem and lack of confidence. And I can't claim to have that, but I have the tenacity to say, whether I have it or not, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to try.
It's that determination, that persistence.
That persistence. Going to do it. God being my helper.
That's right. That's right. So now you are still working in ministry a tiny bit.
I am.
But you are mostly spending your time in creative works, which not that ministry isn't creative, because it certainly is. But writing and doing pottery and creating things. And you're on your third is it a trilogy?
Well, no, I think it would be more than a trilogy, except that I'm going to leave it aside for the moment. I'm just finished Moses and the Dragonborn. And I would say that as I've written, I've grown up as a writer. Like I started, and then I've sort of grown in that ability to write. So I'm really pleased and proud of Moses and the Dragonborn. It's my best book work yet.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the story is, or a little bit about, because if people haven't seen or heard your books yet, then...
Let my people go would be a key phrase in that book. And it starts... a world that has been devastated by the war to end all wars, a missing king that has found himself on that world, and two worlds are chosen to that world. Each of my worlds has a watcher who looks after a school on the world that trains the heroes that will go forth to other worlds to do the work of the guardian, which is justice, peace. And so their job initially is to find the king and take him back to his throne. But they end up doing so much more. It's a story really that touches on the themes of racism and slavery, and but also becoming more than you dreamed that you could be. I've always sort of had this thing for the underdog hero that overcomes his own sense of inadequacy or her own sense of inadequacy to become something more.
And that sounds like it's a theme that has been running through your life as you tell your story.
My own sort of theme in my life is seek the treasure of your own true self. That is like my motto, really, in both ministry and in my writing. In ministry, because that's what I see as a role in me, for me as a minister of a congregation, is I want to help people in their journey and in discovering the treasure of their own true self. Mm-hmm. And I want to do that for myself, of course, as well, but more so I want to have a role in helping others.
being
Yeah.
that influence.
And so that theme is also in my books, that seeking the treasure of your own true self. My next book, interestingly enough, is going to be a time-traveling romance,
Ooh.
historical romance. In a few years back, when I was working in Carmen, they used to always do a Black History Sunday. And I started wondering if we had any slave owners in my family of origin. So I did a little research and discovered that yes, we did. And but in one of my ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War and became very involved with the Primitive Methodist Church, which was opposed to slavery. And he left Virginia for Tennessee before Tennessee was a state because he wanted to free his slaves. And then Tennessee decided to go slave owning, and he went to Indiana and arrived there about the time of the Indian Wars. So I want to really focus my story on his life.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So much still going on for you, Dianne.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And you've given us some great food for thought here already. Do you have one more word of advice you'd like to leave people with?
Well, I think I've already made it, but I think I would leave with seek the treasure of your own true self. We all have untapped treasure. We all have gifts that we don't know we have. Every one of us. And I don't think there's any one of us that's living to our full potential. So get out there and seek that treasure. You will bless yourself, but more than that, you'll bless the world around you.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And where can people find you if they want to get your books or learn more about you?
Well, I do have a website. I don't say very much on the website about myself, but it is www.benthedragonborn, one word, and that's dragonborn, BORN.com.
benthedragonborn.com.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. And I look forward to seeing what you're producing next and to reading the rest of the Ben stories.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This has been a real pleasure, Jennifer.
Take care.
Take care.
So my conversation with Dianne Astle, the author of 3 books and another one coming. I've got pictures of the books and links to everything on the show notes page over at communicationdiva.com, episode 149. And if you're listening to this after November 15th of 2017, you'll find it in the show notes section for careersbyjen.com, which will hopefully be open by then. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you were as inspired and cheered on by Dianne's storytelling as I was during the interview, and hope that you will check out her site and the things that she does. She has a fabulous book trailer video on her website that's fun to listen to or fun to watch. So take a look at that. If you are interested in jumping into our private Facebook group, I encourage you to come on over. It's still called the Diva Community. Eventually I will be changing that, but you can join in. It's absolutely free, and there are a number of amazing people in there that are sharing and collaborating and talking to one another about getting the job, loving your work, advancing your career. And I'm going to be doing some Facebook Live events at some point and getting things organized to do more content creation in the Facebook group. So if you'd like to come on in over there, I'm in there every day. Come to the Diva Community. So far, that's what it's still called on Facebook, and I'll let you know if that changes. Until next time, this is Jen Swanson. Take very good care, and thank you so much for being here.